Damn, Nora, life really carved you hollow, didn't it? I hadn't heard my name in that voice for over 15 years, yet it carried the same razor-edged condescension. Standing in front of me was Victoria, my sister, my betrayer. The woman who abandoned her own son and stole everything from me. And beside her was Michael, my ex-husband, the man who walked out of our marriage and straight into Victoria's bed, taking not just my heart but also $120,000 from our savings account. They had left me with nothing but ruins. I should have been immune after all these years, but here in an upscale boutique in downtown Seattle, as I reached for a bottle of perfume, a small indulgence I'd denied myself for years, their voices made the floor shift beneath me again. Victoria's manicured nails flashed as she flipped her golden hair, her smile sharp with mockery. Michael grinned at me the way a wolf bares its teeth. You look tired, Nora. Guess life's been rough without a man to take care of you, huh? A wave of memories slammed into me. The empty house, the divorce papers, the drained bank account, and Julian, left behind with nothing but a note. I had clawed my way out of the pit they threw me into, bleeding and fighting for every inch of survival. And now here they were, smirking, acting like they had won. I dug my nails into my palm, steadying myself, when a calm, steady voice sounded right behind me. Mom, it's time to go. I turned. And there he was. Julian. No longer the frail little boy I once carried in trembling arms, but a tall, powerful man in a sharp-tailored suit. His steady gaze cut the air like a blade. For the first time, Victoria and Michael froze. For the first time, they looked afraid. They had no idea who I had become. And in just a moment, they would find out. Once, I believed in family. I believed in the bond between sisters, in the vows of marriage, in the fragile net of trust that love was supposed to provide. Back then, I was the devoted wife of Michael Reed, patient, supportive, and naive enough to think that my sacrifices mattered. And Victoria, my younger sister, was the opposite. Reckless, restless, always chasing after something shinier than responsibility. She'd had a child too young and too unprepared, dragging her son Julian from one crumbling apartment to another. She would call me crying about overdue bills, about jobs that never lasted, about how unfair life was. And every single time, I picked up the pieces for her. One winter night, she showed up on my doorstep in Portland, her eyes bloodshot, her voice shaking. She held Julian in her arms, his cheeks pale, his tiny body trembling. He's sick, Nora, she whispered. The doctors said 6 months, maybe less. I can't do this. I can't watch him die. My heart shattered. 6 months. My nephew, the little boy who loved to play with toy trains on my living room floor? How could that be? I pulled Julian against me, felt his fragile arms clutch around my neck. His breath was warm, steady. Too steady for a dying child. But in that moment, I didn't question Victoria. I only promised. I'll take care of him. I'll be there. I won't let him go through this alone. She exhaled, almost relieved, her eyes already darting toward the door. Just until I figure things out, she muttered. I'll be back. But she never came back. Days turned to weeks. Weeks turned to months. Her visits grew rare, her calls shorter, her excuses sharper. And then one evening, it all collapsed. I came home after a long shift at the bookstore, exhausted but eager to check on Julian. The house was too quiet, the kind of silence that presses against your ribs before the blow lands. Julian sat on the couch clutching a threadbare teddy bear. His big brown eyes flicked up at me, confused and frightened. On the table beside him lay a note and a thick stack of papers. I unfolded the note first, my hands already trembling. I can't do this anymore. Take care of him for me. Don't try to find me. Victoria. I dropped the paper, bile rising in my throat. Divorce documents lay underneath, signed by Michael, delivered without even the decency of his presence. It's over, Nora. Victoria and I are leaving. Don't call. I staggered back, choking on my own breath. My savings account was empty, $120,000 gone. Every cent I had worked for, every ounce of security I'd built, stolen. The walls tilted. I sank to my knees, vision blurring, as Julian's small voice broke through the haze. Where did Mommy go? I forced myself to look at him. His wide, innocent eyes searched my face for an answer. My throat burned, my body shook, but I pulled him close, kissed the crown of his hair, and whispered, "She's gone, sweetheart. But I'm here. I'll never leave you." In that moment, something inside me hardened into steel. I had lost my sister. I had lost my marriage. I had lost my money, my safety net, my future. But I had gained a mission, Julian. The following days were a blur of fear. Victoria's words echoed like poison, 6 months to live. I barely slept. Every time Julian coughed, every time his little body swayed with fatigue, panic twisted my insides into knots. Finally, I couldn't take it anymore. I carried him to St. Helena's Children's Hospital, my pulse pounding as the doctors examined him. I braced for the death sentence. Instead, I heard something else entirely. "He's not terminally ill," Dr. Samuel Carter said firmly, flipping through the chart. "He's malnourished." I blinked, unable to process. What? The doctor's expression darkened. Whoever told you otherwise was either lying or blind to reality. This boy hasn't been fed properly in years. His diet is deficient in every way. He's weak, but with proper nutrition and care, he'll recover. The ground disappeared beneath me. Victoria had lied. She hadn't just abandoned her son, she had nearly starved him to death. I walked out of that hospital in a daze, Julian's small fingers gripping mine. Rage and determination battled in my chest, but one truth remained: he was mine to save now. Saving him wasn't easy. My savings were gone, rent was due, bills piled up like tombstones. I took every job I could find: cashier shifts, temp work, overnight cleaning gigs. I worked until my body screamed, until I blurred from exhaustion. Some nights, I didn't eat so Julian could. I cut corners everywhere: no new clothes, no outings, no luxuries. I told myself hunger didn't matter, exhaustion didn't matter, but Julian's health did. He struggled at first. His stomach wasn't used to real food, his body rejected vegetables and protein. But I was patient. Every spoonful he finished was a victory. "Good job, Julian." More than yesterday, I'd say softly, and his shy smile was the first glimpse of hope I'd had in months. Slowly, color returned to his cheeks. His body filled out, his energy soared. The boy Victoria had left to wither became a fighter, resilient and sharp. Years passed. Julian grew. He excelled in school, his natural intelligence shining. He was kind but strong, sharp but steady. The fire in his eyes told me no one would ever break him again. I had lost everything the night Victoria and Michael walked out, but I had gained something greater: a son. My son. My reason to never fall again. 15 years. 15 years of silence from the two people who had shattered my world. 15 years of rebuilding from nothing: no savings, no safety net, no support. 15 years of pouring everything into Julian, ensuring he would never be weak, never be helpless, never know betrayal the way I had. And it was worth every scar. The frail child once left clutching a stuffed bear was now a man on the threshold of greatness, a top medical student, future surgeon, sharp as steel. My greatest victory. I had never remarried. Never needed to. I already had all the love I required in the form of a son who proved that family isn't about blood, but about loyalty, about who stays when the fire rages. Julian thrived in ways I hadn't dared to dream. By 16, he towered over me, his once frail body now broad-shouldered and unshakable. He devoured textbooks the way other boys devoured video games, and when his teachers spoke of his future, they used words like gifted and exceptional. I still remembered the nights I went hungry so he could eat, the mornings I dragged myself to 3 jobs on nothing but coffee and stubbornness. Every sacrifice, every scar on my body, was written into his success. He never forgot either. At graduation, when he stood on the stage in his cap and gown, he looked directly at me, his voice steady as he gave his speech. "To the person who never gave up on me," he said, his eyes locking on mine, "my mother, Nora Whitaker. Everything I am is because of her." The auditorium roared with applause, but I sat frozen, tears blurring my vision. He was no longer the abandoned boy clutching a teddy bear. He was my proof that survival could turn into triumph. I didn't remarry. I didn't need to. Love existed in the form of the boy I raised into a man. And with time, survival transformed into stability. By the time Julian started medical school in Boston, I had rebuilt my life piece by piece. I worked at a community center, coordinating programs for struggling families. Irony, maybe, helping women like I once was. My apartment was modest, but it was mine. My fridge was full. For the first time in decades, I could buy small luxuries without guilt, a pair of shoes I liked, a dinner out, even a bottle of perfume. I rarely thought of Victoria or Michael anymore. Sometimes, late at night, a whisper of curiosity would pass. Where had they ended up? Were they still together? Did they ever regret the trail of destruction they'd left behind? But I never lingered on it. They had stolen everything, but I had taken back my power. Until one ordinary afternoon shattered the quiet I had built. I was standing in a boutique, sunlight spilling through the glass windows, my hand reaching for a bottle of perfume, one I'd once considered too extravagant. A scent of jasmine and amber, rich and soft. I smiled faintly, thinking how far I'd come. Then I heard it. "Isn't that Nora?" The voice clawed through my chest like broken glass. I froze, the perfume bottle slipping from my hand onto the velvet counter. Slowly, carefully, I turned. Victoria. She looked almost unchanged, though her confidence had curdled into something brittle. Her golden hair was curled to perfection, her nails painted crimson, her smile dripping with the same venom as 15 years ago. Beside her stood Michael, still smug, still cruel, though the lines on his face betrayed age. His eyes flicked over me, and that same smirk, the one that had haunted my nightmares, slid onto his lips. Well, he drawled. "You've aged." A simmering rage curled through me, but I forced it down. They would not see me break. Not this time. "Still single, Nora?" Michael asked, voice full of mockery. "Guess you missed your chance." "Victoria and I? We're still madly in love." Madly in love. The words echoed like empty glass. They had destroyed my life, left me bleeding in the ashes, and they dared to flaunt their union as if it were some triumph. But they didn't know the truth. I wasn't the broken woman they abandoned. I had become something else entirely. Then came the voice that silenced the air around us. "Mom. Time to go. Julian." He stepped forward, tall and commanding in his tailored suit, his presence radiating quiet power. The boy they had discarded had become a man who owned the room without even trying. For the first time in 15 years, I watched fear flicker in Victoria's eyes. Michael's smugness faltered, his mouth tightening as he looked at the man his betrayal had forged. And I thought, now you see. Now you see what your cruelty created. They had left me with nothing. But standing beside my son, strong and unbreakable, I realized I had everything. Victoria had always been a master of appearances, but life has a way of peeling off the varnish. Rumors reached me long before I saw the evidence myself. Michael's charm had soured, his finances had crumbled, and the empire they built on stolen money was rotting beneath them. When the truth about Julian's paternity emerged, when whispers spread that Michael had abandoned not just his wife but his own son, the respect he once commanded evaporated overnight. His colleagues at Northcrest Financial stopped taking his calls. The country club that once rolled out red carpets for him revoked his membership. And Victoria? She was no longer the golden-haired temptress who had smirked at me in boutiques. She became a ghost of herself, stripped of Michael's name, his money, his protection. The world finally saw her for what she was, a woman who abandoned her child for a man who never truly wanted her. I should have felt triumphant. Instead, I felt free. For the first time in 15 years, I allowed myself to breathe beyond survival. To dream beyond bills and overtime shifts. And in those quiet moments, when Julian was at med school and the house echoed with silence, I noticed something unexpected, the steady presence of Dr. Samuel Carter. He had been there from the very beginning, the first to tell me Julian wasn't dying, just starving. The one who slipped me grocery bags when my pride nearly choked me. The one who respected my strength, never pitying me. Years had passed, but Samuel remained the same, steady, kind, quietly strong. I began to see him in a different light. Not as a savior, not as a doctor, but as a man. It wasn't a whirlwind. It wasn't fire or obsession. It was something better, steady, strong, unshakable. Built on respect. On survival. On the truth that we had both witnessed each other at our lowest, and neither had turned away. Years later, I stood in a white dress, sunlight pouring through the church windows. My son, Julian, now a man, my greatest victory, stood beside me, extending his arm. "You ready, Mom?" he asked, his voice steady, proud. I smiled, gripping his arm. More than ever, I realized, Victoria had taken everything from me once. But in the end, I had won. Victoria had always mistaken cruelty for strength. She believed that as long as she smiled wide enough, no one would notice the rot beneath her words. But life eventually exposes everything. It started with whispers. Michael's colleagues at Northcrest Financial noticed discrepancies in accounts, numbers that didn't add up. He brushed it off with a laugh, with that same smug grin he used when he left me. But numbers don't lie, and auditors don't forgive. The investigation revealed what I had always suspected. The money he and Victoria stole from me had been their foundation. Without it, their new empire collapsed like a sandcastle against a rising tide. When the firm cut him loose, the headlines followed. Former Northcrest executive under investigation for embezzlement. The man who once bragged about his wealth and influence was suddenly toxic. Business partners withdrew, clients filed lawsuits, the country club revoked his membership. Overnight, Michael Reed went from powerful to pitiful. Victoria clung to him like ivy on a dying wall. But she, too, faced her own reckoning. For years she'd lived on his money, his name, his shadow. Without him, the mask cracked. Old friends remembered the truth, the sister who abandoned her son, the woman who disappeared into selfishness. People she once charmed turned away. I saw her once more in passing, months after their world had shattered. She wasn't draped in luxury anymore. Her once golden hair was dull, her face lined, her clothes cheap imitations of what she used to flaunt. She carried herself with the arrogance of the past, but her eyes betrayed it: fear, regret, loneliness. For the first time, Victoria looked like what she truly was, hollow. But their downfall wasn't just financial or social. It was personal. Michael, desperate to salvage what remained, tried to sue Victoria when the debts piled high. He accused her of fraud, of manipulating him, of ruining his reputation. Their love story, the one they had flaunted in front of me, ended not in devotion, but in court filings and mutual destruction. The tabloids devoured them, painting them as the perfect cautionary tale, the cheating executive and his mistress, undone by greed. They became entertainment, not people. Punchlines, not partners. And through it all, I stayed silent. I didn't need revenge. The world had done it for me. Meanwhile, Julian's name began to rise. Every headline about Michael's disgrace was followed by whispers of Julian Whittaker, top of his medical class in Boston, a young man of integrity and brilliance. The contrast was sharp: a father who crumbled, a son who thrived. Sometimes people asked Julian about Michael. His response was always the same, calm and steady. "My father is the man who raised me. Her name is Nora." And each time I heard it, I felt the ground beneath me steady again. Victoria and Michael had taken everything from me once. But their fall reminded me of a truth I had learned in the hardest way. Power built on betrayal always collapses. And when it does, the ones who rise are not the loudest, not the cruelest, but the ones who endured. Their downfall gave me no joy, only closure. I didn't chase revenge, I didn't need to. Life had done it for me. And while Victoria and Michael tore each other apart in courtrooms and gossip columns, I turned my eyes forward. Julian was thriving. He was no longer the boy who clutched a teddy bear while the world collapsed. He was a man with steady hands, a sharp mind, and a heart built for healing. Watching him walk across the stage at his white coat ceremony, hearing the applause thunder through the auditorium, I felt something inside me settle. He had done it. We had done it. That night, he hugged me, his voice low against my ear. "You kept your promise, Mom. You said I'd never be alone. And you were right. Tears slipped down my cheeks, but this time they weren't born of pain. They were born of triumph. And then there was Samuel Carter. The man who had been there in my darkest days, when all I had was willpower and a malnourished child. The man who slipped groceries into my hands when I was too proud to beg. 4 years, I had buried my heart beneath survival, but Samuel never asked for it. He simply respected me, waited, remained. When I finally allowed myself to see him not as a doctor, not as a savior, but as a man, it was like discovering a calm harbor after a lifetime at sea. He proposed quietly, without spectacle, in my kitchen while I brewed tea. No diamonds, no grand gestures, he said, sliding a simple gold band across the counter. Just me, promising I'll never walk away. I stared at him, my throat thick, and for the first time in decades, I said yes without fear. The church was filled with light the day of our wedding. My dress was simple, elegant, nothing extravagant, nothing borrowed. Just me, finally whole. Julian stood by my side, tall and proud, offering his arm. You ready, Mom? He asked, his eyes shining. I smiled, squeezing his hand. More than ever. As Samuel waited for me at the altar, steady and unshakable, I thought of everything I had lost, the betrayal, the lies, the nights of hunger and fear. And then I thought of everything I had gained. Victoria and Michael had stolen my money, my marriage, and the life I thought I wanted. But in the ashes, I had found something far greater, strength, resilience, and a son who had become my greatest victory. And now, finally, I had found love that wasn't built on betrayal, but on respect. When I reached the altar, Samuel took my hand. Julian stood proudly beside us. And for the first time in 15 years, I allowed myself to truly believe. I had won.